So, hello, Peter. My name is Dov for the people who are watching. And today I'd love to speak with Peter Merel, who is one of the people who inspired me in my Agile journey. Peter is the creator of a thing called Xscale and the author of a sort of a book in writing, which is called the Agile Tao. And both of them are things that I think are meaningful in the community. So I have the big honor to invite you to talk. Hello, Peter.
Hey, Dolph, how are you going?
Great. Just one thing that I forgot to say, this interview is part of the interviews of the patrons of the Agile20Reflect Festival, which is a month-long festival that takes place in February all over the globe in all of the languages. Are you ready to start?
I am indeed. Why don't we go ahead?
Great. So the first question is the question that we ask all of the interviewees, which is, what is Agile to you?
The easy answer is Agile is the ability to respond to changing conditions. At least that's what you would think would be a reasonable way to think about it. But Agile has become so many things. It might be more interesting to talk about what Agile isn't. There's a local restaurant near me. It's a Thai restaurant, and it has the name Agile Thai. It's the word has lost its meaning by being applied to so many different things. I think the most important thing that Agile is about for us has to do with a movement in a different direction to where it started. So I like the idea that we are reflecting on where Agile has been, because I think it has now got to take a step into a larger sphere. I think that it's about, obviously it's about business, but it's also about the way we would expect society and our civilization to work. I think that a lot of the stuff that's bedeviling us now, it comes from an inability to respond to changing social conditions. And the changes we've been experiencing in 2020 are all about that inability.
Okay. And what I expected you to talk about in this question, perhaps I can lure you to expand on this.
Go ahead, lure me.
Perspective of the Tao.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we should give just a little nutshell. I'm very bad at nutshells, as you know. They tend to grow into oak trees. But 30 years ago, I started translating Lao Tzu, and I'm not finished yet. And you and I have been having a dialogue around this translation for a couple of years now. For those watching, Dov is the world's expert on interviewing me because we've been doing this podcast together. So Taoism, in some ways, is the original agility. People like to talk about agile mindset, whether you're going for the mindset idea or not. A lot of the roots that we think of as starting 10, 20, 30 years ago, they're actually little twigs on a much larger and older tree. So the work that you and I have been working with, it started long before either one of us arrived. And really the lovely thing about Agile from my point of view is it provides a vocabulary that we can use to translate some of these ideas that have been very poorly translated for a very long time into something that's living, something that we can actually provide value with.
Okay. Another question I have is, when you look around, what was the impact of this movement that we're part of? And I would love to hear a little bit also about your personal journey there.
Okay. Well, let me start with personal journey and see whether we wind up with an impact. I was an architect at Hewlett Packard in the late 90s, and I had a gentleman turn up, a robotics PhD, to take part in a project that I was involved with there. And this gentleman thumped the table with a very big, heavyweight methodology book. And I needed some way to, to deal with this force that I saw as a very dangerous force for the program I was involved with. Um, and I wound up getting involved with stuff that's very similar to the old rapid application development, the old Steve McConnell stuff. And it worked mostly, but I was very keenly aware there were some problems with it. I got involved in a conversation that started on the C2 wiki when Kent Beck turned up, and Kent started talking about XP. Well, extreme programming, he hadn't even shortened it at the time. Um, and I thought it was all nonsense. So I put up a set of challenge questions, and Kent, as is his way, cut through them like a knife through butter. And I realized that I had to try doing this thing. So to cut another long story short, I'm going to cut lots of long stories short if we're going to have a nutshell. I wound up running the second XP program in the world in '98. And then I just kept using it. I wasn't in the business of being a boffin. I was in the business of delivering software. And I found this a very useful way to get things done. And it was probably 2007, 2008 when I got roped into coaching for a living. Up until then, I'd been delivering software for a living. But as is often the way, you get to a place in your career where you've been doing something for long enough that people will pay you to do it, and they'll pay you more than you have been paid to do other things. And so I went like that for a while. Well, I coached larger and larger programs until I wound up as strategist and principal coach for the transformation of Australia's largest banking group. And this is 2011 through to 2014, a Commonwealth Bank of Australia. And I had learned quite a lot going into that transformation, but it was far larger than anything I had done before. I had already evolved some patterns around this idea of pull transformation, and that was kind of what me roped into doing that work. But to cut another long story short, I wound up on stage with the group CIO, Michael Hart, and he declared, Agile is now one of the 5 pillars of this bank's future. And I realized that I had learned enough that I could bring something to the culture that wasn't there yet. And that's where the idea of X scale came in. So when it comes to the impact of Agile, Agile as an idea, as a meme in the old sense, in the Dawkins sense, as a self-repeating idea, has 2 embodiments. One of those embodiments has almost no impact whatsoever. It's just another form of bureaucracy by another name. And it's often the case, bureaucracy loves to clothe itself in the garment of a revolution, but it doesn't really change anything, just the language. The other embodiment of Agile is what really drives me day to day. It's what matters to me. And it has to do with improving the ability of an organization to respond to changing market conditions. If we start with that idea, you might call it business agility, but people have different definitions for different things. But if we start with that idea of improving the ability of the organization to respond to changing conditions, then everything we've done in Agile so far provides useful tools. But we have to start there. If instead we start with Agile as a flag to wave, or as a certificate to get, or as something that's someone's job title, that's all rubbish. That's that first embodiment. If we instead focus on the outcome, well, then we have an ability to do some good in the world. So I could talk a lot about descaling and X scale in that context and so on, but really driving it back to Agile, Agile has had that kind of impact from the start where it has been applied successfully. Unfortunately, most of the business of Agile is the second embodiment. It's a cult.
And when it's applied in this second sense, do you think it has no good impact at all?
Well, it provides a channel for the first embodiment. It's a little bit like the old Dao Jiao versus Dao Jiao, religious Taoism versus philosophical Taoism. Philosophical Taoism only survived all of the various different purges of Chinese history because it was encoded inside religious Taoism. Well, religious agility is the certificates and the the Shu Ha Ri. Mughinshu is more in the other direction. Mughinshu is about learning ecosystem. So apologies. I very much like the idea of Mughinshu, and it rolls off the tongue more easily than Shu Ha Ri.
Can you just, even if we don't have time, can you explain to the people, and I'm sure at least 10% of the people who look at this have no clue what Mughinshu is. Can you say a few words about this?
Sure. So both Shu Ha Ri and Mughinshu derive from the Japanese tradition of tea. Mughinshu came first. The reason Japanese tea is so different to tea anywhere else in any other culture is because of the innovation that was generated by a fellow named Rikyu when he was endeavoring to end 200 years of civil war by changing the way that tea was served. Now, about 100 years after he succeeded at doing that, maybe it was 200. Anyway, a gentleman named Fuhaku invented Shu Ha Ri as a way to end the period of innovation, to get things to become ritualized and stylized. And now when we think about the Japanese tea service, it is this ultimate perfect form, and all the Zen guys got involved in it. But the original idea was not about some perfect way to fold a napkin. The original idea was, and Ricky said it himself, we boil water, and we're doing this to serve tea. We want to serve the best tea that we can. When we bring it into an agile sphere, we want people to work together to generate agility in the organization in which they take part. The rest of that stuff, the certificates, the books, the guides, the manifestos, all that stuff, that's nothing to do with that. Well, it provides, where it provides useful patterns and principles. Okay, there's some value there. But the whole point of that value is to apply it, not to put it on your resume. So Mughinshu, we define, well, the original meaning of Mughinshu is no teacher, no student, or no host, literally no host, no guest. It's about learning from each other and transmitting learning across and up and down in the organization. We really care about a learning ecosystem, a network of mutual benefit between many people learning, not about a teacher teaching something to a student, someone with many certificates giving one certificate to someone with less certificates. That second part is nonsense. Where we open up channels for the communication of learning, we improve the ability for the organization to adapt to changing conditions.
Okay, so now we know what Mughinshu is. A few more questions. One which intrigues me when I hear you talk about organizations, and at the beginning you said if the world would have been more agile. So how much agility is currently required on the worldwide scale? Because one of the definitions of agile that you gave now is agility on a business side, is to react to a changing business context.
Yeah.
But what about the full ecosystem, which is a whole world?
If we begin with the outcome in mind, we have some chance of succeeding. If we just focus on point solutions, half solutions, we're not going to get there. And right now, we are at a cusp in world history. We have an opportunity to usher in an age of abundance. All of the technologies are all coming to flower at the moment. We're almost at a place where we've got working nuclear fusion. We're almost at a place where augmented reality becomes the rule of the day. We're almost at a place where we can stop killing animals to eat them and instead farm bacteria and algae with the proteins from those animals in it. There's lots of things that are almost there. And if we grasp these opportunities, then the next generation will be an age of wonders from the perspective of people with as much gray hair or as much no hair as ourselves. We have an ability to do these things. At the same time, we're in a race because we're also looking at unprecedented social and climactic changes. And some of those changes have in the past ended human civilizations on this planet. So I don't know how many second chances we get, but right now we have an opportunity to take our civilization and have it blossom out into the solar system. We have a few people who are trying to grasp that in a private sense. And I know a lot of this sounds woo-woo, but it's not. These things are real. So as a civilization, if we are able to look at the forces that are threatening us and the opportunities that are available to us in an agile sense, well, it's a matter of prioritization. And right now, our prioritization as a civilization stinks on ice. So bringing some of the ideas that you and I have been working on in Xscale to do with leadership as a service and the Camelot model, and taking them into a public sphere where we can start to use these to improve the way that our nations and our cultures make decisions. Obviously, we have to apply this in a business sense first. It's easiest to prove it in a business context. But these ideas are applicable on a world stage too.
Okay. And I'll finish with two questions, and you can mix the answer as you want. Okay. So one question is, what would you expect for the perfect festival to be? What sort of outcome would you aspire the festival to make? What sort of footprint? And the second one is, could you please cite your favorite quote from the Agile Tao, just so people have a taste for it?
You do ask some ticklish questions, Dov. Let me start with the, what do I hope? I hope the festival will generate an impact well beyond the original remit of Agile. I think it's time to take that step onto a larger, onto a more public stage. So I think the festival needs to lift its sights. I think if it is something where we go, okay, well, let's recognize that we have improved the way that some teams work, maybe some value streams work. That's hooray! Yes, we did some good. We did do some good, but right now, the problems that people are dealing with are not problems of how quickly can we grow this business. They're problems of survival. So I would like to think that the impact of the festival will be to generate a new awareness of Agile among people at decision-making levels that it has not reached yet. That would be great. Favorite quote from the Agile DAO. I don't know if I have a favorite. I mean,
so leave the favorite out. I would like people to have a taste of.
The Agile DAO provides a definition for agility in terms of functional qualities. So it says that to have an agile mindset, to be agile, you need a warm heart, an open mind, and a coiled spine. If you lack one of these properties, then you can't have agility. If you are all floppy and all over the place, we're going to be kind to everyone, we're going to love everyone. The world doesn't work like that. You have to have a certain degree of passion and determination. If you don't have an open mind, you will be blindsided by stuff that's outside of your current understanding. If you don't have that warm heart, the empathy for other people, well, then everything else that you do is going to be something that does not generate mutual benefit. And things that don't generate mutual benefit don't last. So I think that quote, that line, I think it's the second part of the Agile DAO. There's more to it than that. And if I was in the mode of reciting the bloody thing, I could probably recite it to you. But I love that idea of coiled spine, especially. I think that we often leave that out. Agile as a warm heart and open mind, that's easy. As a coiled spine, that's much more like the Muhammad Ali rope-a-dope. That's agility in that sense.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Since I have the stage for a few minutes, I'd like to add what are my aspirations from the festival that are a little bit complementary to yours. And this is to provide the glue between a lot of communities that are currently in solitude, to make the agile world, the agile force more as one and more aligned within each other, because I feel that currently there's a lot of communities that are not necessarily in contact one with the other, which brings to different forces that sometimes start colliding with each other's intention and confuse the world as a whole as to what is the idea of agility. So if we manage to align and inspire all the communities one by the other, it would be great for me, in addition to what you said.
Would it be fair to say that you're talking about harmony, Dov?
Yes, I'm always talking about harmony.
Good.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, look, I think that we have a wonderful festival on our doorstep. From the point of view of the folk in Xscale Alliance, we have a game, we call it the Game Without Thrones, that we've played on some pretty large scales over the last 5 years. And we intend to bring this electronically to the conference participants. And I've been doing work with, in particular, James Gorman in Sydney, to get a combination of tools, including Discord and Miro, ready to do this for the conference. So I think we have a lot ahead of us.
If we do something like this, or by the way, to the viewers, any other game that you want, one challenge that I would put into the mix is how do we do it worldwide, language-wide? So
Absolutely.
It's a challenge. We'll see. And one thing that I would love to bring into the festival with you is to talk about the Agile DAO, but that's
sure.
We'll see in the. Thanks a lot. What time is it?
Oh, one more thing I should say. So the point of this game, autonomy in alignment. This is the ultimate expression of that. No command and control for hundreds of players simultaneously. So if we can show that,